Well, good Tuesday afternoon. I'm meteorologist James Hopkins, joined by meteorologist Luke Turner and Dr. Rick Knabb. We're going to talk all things tropics because we went through the first 2 weeks of September with nothing going on. Actually, that's only the third time since the satellite era we've had no tropical systems for the first 2 weeks of September. And of course, you know, things are heating up. There's Dr. Rick Knabb, and we're going to talk more about what is going on. Of course, we've been talking about Gabrielle. We all know it is a Category 4 system moving its way up and out, but now we're shifting our focus to two other systems potentially as we go throughout this week, weekend, and next week. So here's meteorologist Dr. Rick Knabb. So take it away.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. It is definitely the case that late September is turning out to be a lot busier than the first half of September, and that's not hard when you have nothing going on in early September in what has been an historic lull from late August to mid-September, but interrupted by another major hurricane with Gabrielle. But there's more where that came from, not necessarily more major hurricanes, but now the waves behind Gabrielle, which is going northeast of Bermuda, there's two waves behind it. And the first one is bringing some gusty winds and some showery weather to the northern Leeward Islands. And it's got, according to the Hurricane Center, a 60% shot of developing over the next 7 days. And Florida northward to the Carolinas, in addition to the Bahamas and the islands in between, need to watch that one carefully. There's a lot of uncertainty in exactly where or when this might form. And until it forms, really hard to get a beat on the track and intensity. And then there's the system right behind it. So Gabrielle, wave number one, wave number two. And the problem with these systems not developing farther to the east is they tend to stay farther south and west until they develop. This one's got a higher chance of developing, and both of them will be over the very warm waters of the western Atlantic over the next few days. So they both kind of have that look of healthy tropical waves. It's just that there's some wind shear in the atmosphere that the first wave especially will have to contend with. And then, as we've seen over the eastern U.S. for weeks and weeks, some kind of middle upper level troughing pattern, and that general pattern is going to remain in place. So this system has to contend with the wind shear of this guy, and then it will be brought northward. But how much will it be steered northward versus westward? How much will it be sheared? How lopsided will it be? So those are some of the big questions as this heads toward the warmer waters. Here's just one quick look at the latest models staying weak for the next couple of days till it gets north of Hispaniola and Cuba, and then the wind shear weakens. But there's that troughing pattern, that complicated pattern over the southeastern U.S., bringing it northward. But look at two systems potentially developing over the western Atlantic. Could one affect Bermuda and the other one affect the U.S., or could they both affect Bermuda? My goodness, guys, there are so many uncertainties with regard to how these two systems are going to form, what interactions are going to be, and certainly a lot of uncertainty with regard to what potential impacts there could be in the southeastern U.S., guys.
And what we've been watching, of course, and this is really over the last day or so, whenever we first started watching these invests, you get the GFS that likes one of them but not the other. The European likes one but not the other, yeah. And they don't agree on which one they like. And now it's coming down to the fact where, the euro, we tend to lean a little bit more towards that. But what we're looking for, of course, is the trends in the model runs. We're looking in the confidence here. And now the European has both, and it's kind of crazy because these are going to be two systems potentially that could be very close together. And we'll get another one that could potentially impact Bermuda, and then one possibly the coast of the Carolinas. So here's your pressure. Now, this one, again, is the European model, and you can see the green is kind of the high pressure. I've got another graphic that shows a little better when it comes to the tropical steering, but what we're looking for is the yellow. Now, as we go into early next week, there it is, the yellow and the orange, and you can see both of them. Again, the European model shows one of them, and this one closer to Bermuda would be Invest 93, and this one's 94, which is expected to go through the islands, then emerge maybe just to the north of the Bahamas. That's where it's expected to maybe become a little bit better organized, maybe even a tropical depression as we go Sunday into Monday. But just look at both of these intensifying as we go throughout. There's Tuesday moving up towards the Bahamas, and there's, again, the European model shows that second one, which again is Invest 94, towards Bermuda, then pushing to the north. And I'm going to show you why That one potentially, again, maybe the coast of the Carolinas, but that one could potentially stall. So there is your area of high pressure. And look what happens as we go throughout the remainder of this week. And of course, the one you have on there, category 4, that is Gabrielle. So the high pressure will slide back down to the south, really near Bermuda as we go towards the weekend and into next week. But look at early next week. We get, again, like you were mentioning, a trough. We have a cold front that's actually working its way into Florida this weekend. What happens Sunday into Monday, again, could determine on where Invest 94 goes. If it goes up the coast, if it pushes kind of closer to Florida. And watch what happens, though, as we go throughout. Again, here we go, Sunday into Monday. And again, this is the European model with 2 systems. So one of them looks to pass to the north, but look what happens behind that. That high pressure builds in. And look how it starts to push that one back a little closer to the coast. It depends on, again, this is still far out. This is October the 3rd that we're looking at. But this one, again, and again, what I'm talking about is AL94. This one is the one that is going to move its way possibly across Puerto Rico. And Lou, I know you're watching both of them, but there's always kind of when you're watching and you say, okay, this one, the models are kind of trending a little closer to the coast of Florida, maybe up towards the Carolinas. And if that high pressure does from the Great Lakes slide over, it could actually move its way back down to the south. We saw that like with Hurricane Florence. We're watching for the door to open, that door closed, and it actually pushed back down to the south and hit the Carolinas. So, of course, you're watching both these closely. What are your main concerns?
Is that blocking high. So that's my kind of number one thing. You've kind of squared up on what I would watch, especially here in Northeast Florida for Jacksonville and my friends there in Southeast Georgia who'll be watching for those local impacts, right? So with all of this, it's such a unique and for our viewer at the house, this has the potential to be confusing, almost anxiety inducing when we've got these things right next to each other. The potential is kind of on all ends of the spectrum. So what I want my folks to do here up in Northeast Florida is just let's focus on timing, okay? So if we can't, eat the whole rotisserie chicken in one bite, let's focus on one piece, okay? So let's focus on timing. Let's think towards the weekend, and now is the time to be prepared and get ready and have all those preparations. But we get to Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. I think those are your big 3 impact days. And right now, with current information, with so much that can still change, James, Dr. Knabb, I want folks prepared for coastal impacts, rip currents, large surf, and the potential for some nuisance coastal flooding. Here in Jacksonville and along the East Coast, we have been just inundated with this inshore flow, these strong northeast winds that have filled up our St. Johns River, have filled up the intracoastal waterway, not allowing for these low tides to really flush out. So we're getting higher than normal astronomical tides as it is. Any sort of push from a long fetch with even stronger northeast winds could exacerbate any coastal flooding. So I want folks prepared for those potential impacts. But there could be any number as we watch Sunday, Monday, Tuesday very carefully. And, James, if you're able, there's one image and spaghetti models are just kind of freshly coming in. But with 94 in particular, the spaghetti models are all over the chart. And that's just because, A, you've got potential for interaction with land, and B, this phenomenon known as the Fujiwara effect. And I would love it if I could transition to Dr. Knabb for a moment. In your experience, can you talk to us about that interaction between 2 potential areas of low pressure there in the tropics, how they can kind of impact each other as they continue their move to the west?
Yeah, sure. Forecasting the formation and eventual track and intensity of just one of these systems would be challenging enough, given the complex flow pattern that, say, 94 is going to be interacting with this upper low and then the troughing over the southeastern U.S. and vicinity. That's hard enough. But if, like you say, if you have both systems develop, and that's not a guarantee, but they both have a greater than 50-50 shot of developing. If they both develop, then if they're within several hundred miles of one another, then they can affect one another's track. And I want to show you the models. Again, here's the two systems, the colors of the low-level spin, and if they both develop, as the Euro is suggesting, then by this weekend, they start to get close enough together to have that possible impact on one another. And what usually happens is the circulation around one interacts with the circulation around one another, and they can tend to rotate around one another. But they will also be contending with the steering features around them. But in this particular run, you do get a slight interaction between the two, but then they are generally steered by the flow around them. Now, if they get really close together, one can cause the other one to weaken or even dissipate and then get absorbed by the dominant one. If they get too close, they're not going to merge and make one big hurricane. One is going to cause the other one to weaken because of its outflow and so forth. So it is an extremely complicated forecast, and one take-home from all of that for, say, residents of the east coast of Florida or the southeastern U.S. up to North Carolina is there could be at some point along the way a cone from the Hurricane Center, from the westernmost one, that shows it going out to sea. And then things change and the track forecast changes dramatically. We saw that with Hurricane Jeanne in 2004. We saw with Henri in 2021 where the cone was pointed out to sea and then that pointed back toward land. So do not tune out on these two systems until they are far away from land or they have come ashore and they have weakened. So we don't want to be caught off guard by what a situation like this can cause, which is major changes in the track even after the first couple of cones come out.
So yeah, guys. I'm not taking anything off the table then with this. Mm-hmm. You know, so with all of that uncertainty, one thing I find some confidence in is what you just alluded to, Dr. Knabb, which is the shearing effect when these two start interacting with each other. The rapid intensification, while certainly possible because of that warm water, when they start interacting with each other, these systems are so finicky that that shearing impact, almost getting tossed about, could potentially help with that. So James, I ask you, when it comes to your kind of intensity forecasting, I don't know, what are you thinking with either one of these systems?
Well, I think, and we talk about this all the time, especially when we talk about like the steering patterns, like Dr. Knabb just talked about. The stronger system wins out. So if you get a Cat 5 hurricane that's battling, you know, that mid-Atlantic ridge, it could basically power through wherever it really wants to go. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't need to find as weak of a spot that, say, a tropical storm would need. Also, again, looking towards the end of the forecast runs that we have, like you said, that block-in, I think we all remember probably one of the most famous ones that made that hard left, Superstorm Sandy, doing that exact thing where it goes up the coast. Forecast models have the cone going out, and then all of a sudden you see the spaghetti models. One makes a left turn. Then the next run, 10 make a left turn, and then we all know what happened with that system. But what could potentially help us out is, again, we have 94, which is the one that's a little bit closer, expected to go through maybe the Bahamas as just a low, and then maybe a depression once it emerges there. If you look at the graphic here, the European model is showing that we have a cold front that's going to move its way into Florida as we go into the weekend. Again, this could really help us, just depending on what happens with the system, because you can see it here. So expecting that front to be here on Saturday, not expecting it to go too far, but right here when you go into early on Monday morning, you can already see that circulation right there. So if that front is here, that could help because it could either push that out, it could merge with that, but you see that circulation there, and you can really see it whenever we look at the mid-level moisture, the precipitable water. You can see when these cold fronts start to work their way in. And just the difference of the model runs here over the course of the past couple of days have been significantly different. Again, that's what we look for. We look for consistency in the models. So again, it shows the front coming in and just kind of fizzling out. Now again, what you see here, the bars, this is the European model. And what I've kind of done, because I know it's kind of hard to see, but what I have here is This is the European model. Now, if you can see the wind is actually the GFS. Try to lay them over on top of each other, and you can see that the GFS doesn't have this system here. So it's the European model that shows two systems, and at this point in time, and here we go into Tuesday, of course, they're both off the coast. They both look like maybe similar in strength, but have them actually moving their way up, and it's that second one that you kind of see it there towards the end of this run here, Thursday, October the 2nd, where it starts to make a push back towards the coast. So there's many factors that we're going to be looking, of course, at this whenever. But you were mentioning the spaghetti models, and not a lot. And again, this is how the European was trending just yesterday. The European model did not like 94. 93 looks like it could potentially maybe follow the same suit as Gabrielle. Intensity models don't show it quite nearly as strong. And we saw this when Aaron moved its way through, churned up that water, and then behind it, the next system wasn't nearly as strong. We haven't got the European model yet, but this is your GFS ensembles on this one, and you can kind of see they are a little all over the place, but it does keep it, again, this system a little closer to Bermuda. Now, 94, again, is in the islands there, moving its way towards Puerto Rico, and you see, as it goes up through the Bahamas, that's where some of the models are showing it could potentially make its way to a tropical system after that. But as you said, these are early model runs, but not many of them like it lasting through. Of course, we know that Haiti, Dominican Republic has a high elevation there. It has been known to tear these systems apart. If it goes through the Bahamas and does make it, again, the forecast models that do show it make it, have it turning kind of following behind the other one. And we can only hope that, again, that these two systems kind of combine maybe into one if they do, again, get close enough. But as of right now, this is something we need to watch very closely, but the forecast models are trending, at least for us here in Florida, that our impacts are going to be minimal with high surf and, like you mentioned, the river flooding and stuff like that from your tides and stuff like that, because that's where all the signs are pointing to right now. Are you seeing that same trend, Rick?
Well, yes, we're seeing that trend in the most recent models, but we've seen some big changes and some windshield wipering, and you cannot rule out the westernmost system, especially, staying a hurricane and coming into Florida. It's a low probability event right now, but there's so much that could happen here. I don't want anybody in Florida to let down their guard until we are sure that these systems are going to be moving away for good.
Absolutely. We always watch. As soon as they pass Bermuda, then we're good. But yes, there's many things. Again, just talking about that cold front that the European has coming in, it's been going back and forth. We know if this thing stalls over towards the Big Bend, that would allow a system to be able to skate a little bit closer to the east coast of Florida. So a lot of things are going to go on. Of course, this is going to be leading out of the weekend and into next week. So we're going to get many more model runs coming in. And of course, as we get a little bit closer, like Rick had mentioned, it's nicer whenever these systems develop a little bit further towards the east, because again, you get better model runs and you get one that the stronger they tend to make that northern turn quicker. But these are just, again, on their way towards the west. And unfortunately, something we need to keep a very close eye on through the weekend and into next week. You guys feel the same way, of course.
For sure, and just to kind of put a bow on our conversation, and boy, do I appreciate this, and I hope the viewer does as well. This is such a treat to get to talk to the two of you on such a complex situation. To a reminder now, here in Northeast Florida, our friends in Tampa, maybe impact's a little more minimal, but we, again, not taking anything off the table. What I want us to watch, let's prepare now. Let's think about, the weekend, the end of the week, and the first of next week for those potential impacts. And I would implore you to continue checking in with us, and don't suffer paralysis by analysis. I would suggest maybe a couple of times a day, find a source that you trust, and I would love that if that was us, and you come back and you get the very latest data, no nonsense, and get us through this and get us into the weekend. So as we do wrap up, Dr. Rick Knabb from the Weather Channel, their hurricane expert, and meteorologist James Hopkins, we certainly appreciate the time, and we'll do this again every Tuesday, this same time, 4:30, throughout the hurricane season, as things do seem to be ramping up, of course. And don't go anywhere, because James is going to have local forecasting there in Tampa. We're going to be right here in Jacksonville as well. Spend the next few minutes with you talking about here hear things locally, what we can expect over the next couple of days as we're dealing, in fact, with some near record heat. Where is fall gone, y'all? Guys, gentlemen, thank you again for your time. And
thank you.
We will continue, as always, to track the tropics.
Thank you.
Hey, I'm meteorologist Robert Spena, always continuing to track the tropics out here. But not only that, let's talk about our local weather here on the First Coast. And a big thank you for Lewis Turner, James Hopkins, and Dr. Knabb out there, just breaking down the latest on what's happening. And don't forget firstcoastnews.com/Hurricane Central. Yeah, that's where we do have all our graphics that you probably have seen in that update right there. We have that there at our website, so you can track these storms yourself. You can even go in through some of the model analysis and see what we're seeing. So hopefully, during these long videos that you're watching here, and we really appreciate watching for like 20 minutes straight, but hopefully we do educate so you can learn and make proper decisions on your own whenever you have a tropical system heading towards you. The better the education, the better decisions people make, and the better in the end that you be staying safe out there. All right, so let's talk about our weather closer to home. And basically, we're of course continuing to track Gabrielle, but then we take a look at the outlook for the rest of our our Tuesday here heading into Wednesday. And overall, things continue to remain dry. Not too bad out there. We do have a few isolated afternoon showers possible along the Suwannee Valley and the I-75 corridor as we go ahead into our Wednesday, but nothing that I would be overtly concerned about. Just if you're across those areas, and as I'm sure you typically are, just be ready for that chance of a few passing showers, but nothing too intense. Let's actually take a look at the forecast for Wednesday here. 93 for a high, but it is still going to feel like 100 to 103. Few isolated storms there too. So it's definitely going to be on the hot side through the afternoon. Those areas that do get the rain, at least you do get a little bit of a relief from the heat. You know what else is happening here Wednesday morning? It was slated to happen Tuesday morning, but it was pushed back, is a rocket launch, Falcon 9 with the IMAP mission on board. This mission's pretty cool in the sense that it's going to be put up there to study space weather. Yeah, that's a real thing, space weather. It's basically if the sun has a coronal mass ejection or all the different plasma, it kind of squirts out at the Earth. You can get the auroras, of course. You're also talking about, satellite communications sometimes get knocked out. And especially for the Artemis mission coming up, it's going to be able to forecast, some of these and how it could impact astronauts out there. So kind of neat. And that does launch tomorrow morning at 7:30 a.m. So just after sunrise. It still is going to be a beautiful launch, but the ones just prior to sunrise are the best because that's when you get kind of the jellyfish cloud there. Thursday high is 92, hot and humid showers here in Jacksonville, Florida. We're going to be looking at a few isolated afternoon showers once again, but nothing too intense. It's not really until Friday and the Saturday that we do see kind of an increase in rainfall here. And you can see this Thursday night through Friday morning, we get kind of this front slowly dipping in from the north and west, and that increases that chance of those showers there. That same front and the same dip in the jet stream, by the way, is the whole kind of blocking factor that everybody was just talking about here a minute ago, how you had to have a lot of that shear. So if we get a storm off of the East Coast, it should in theory push off towards the north because of this same front here that's going to be dipping down and increasing that rainfall Friday and into our Saturday on the First Coast. So if you got those weekend plans, you might be wanting to watch out for that chance of precip to start off the weekend. Sunday will probably be the better day to get out, and if you're going to do any boating or anything like that, maybe go for a nice hike or just kind of get out and enjoy the day. Sunday would be the better day to do that. Due to the less cloud cover as well, temperatures would be into the high 80s, near 90 degrees at times there on your Sunday. But overall, Tuesday and the Wednesday, weather's still looking kind of nice out there. By the way, if you're looking ahead to autumn, because we have high 80s, 90-degree temperatures in the outlook here. Halloween is 38 days away. Thanksgiving's a nice solid 65. And Christmas, for those looking forward to Christmas, I'm not going to hate on you. All right. I know you guys, 93 days away here. And if you are a leafer that lives in Northeast Florida, Southeast Georgia, sorry about your life. That's a bad place to live if you're a leafer. But we do get them, first off, already in parts of upstate New York, all across the Rockies. I've seen photos out of the Finger Lakes. They're already getting some good solid changes in the fall colors. But closer to Jacksonville on the first coast, we have to wait until about mid to late November do you start to see it. If you're in Jacksonville, you don't really get the leaves changing. But if you're in Waycross, maybe Madison County, Suwannee County, north of Lake City, late November, you'll start to see kind of some of those true autumn colors, which if you do end up seeing some of those true autumn colors, I always do encourage you to send us some photos to our First Coast News weather watchers. Bob just sent this in the other day. Great shot here. Kind of one of those little isolated shots of rainfall just off of our beach. Also, this was from Wayne. Beautiful sunset there. Absolutely gorgeous. Little towering cumulus off over the horizon there. This was from this morning. Dave Alexander sent this in of Ollie the weather dog, we like to call him, out there enjoying the sunrise. Beautiful shot there, as well as this. You may have noticed the last few nights, Venus has been very close to the moon just prior to sunrise. Actually, earlier this week, or last week, I should say, there was a bit of a conjunction. They were almost right on top of each other. Todd sent in this great shot there.